Hey, Effective Fitness Training Crew. My name is Mitch, Director of Fitness. Tuning in live with also we got Matt Green, who is our head coach, and also Adam, who's founder of EFT, along with Effective Fitness Combatives and also Police Posts. We got a lot of great topics to discuss today, so we're going to dive right in. One of the first things that I wanted to address is, really just so many officers out there that are not living above the standard. And Adam's going to know this probably the best, but he's also co-owner of Police Posts, which was recently just taken down on Instagram. If you guys have not checked out that page, that's definitely one that you need to follow. But Police Posts is specifically a page that highlights a lot of these situations where there's a lot of cops out there that are really just more liabilities. So they're definitely not an asset to themselves. They're not an asset to their community or their teammates. And frankly, they're just putting everybody out there at risk. And so I just wanted to we'll start with that. But I mean, obviously, this is a topic that needs to be discussed.
No, for sure, man. I think that it's the job aside, health and wellness is always should be a priority. And I think that, I would even say that social media has been helping that. There's a lot of resources out there, whether they're from EFT or not, there's a lot of resources out there for people to just better their lives. And it's not that you have to overcomplicate the process of trying to become, I guess you could say, healthier. And that's kind of what we try to do. I feel like we do a really good job of trying to get people to implement simple things for like themselves, to whether it's diet, supplements, working out, just lifestyle changes overall, to just make themselves better. And I just think that it's not a very complicated thing. And people make it like, oh, I don't know what supplements to take. Should I take this? Should I take that? When really the best thing is to find a trusted source that you get your information from, and then implement that and see what see what 30 days does, just making one simple change in your life. But yeah, as it pertains to law enforcement, it's a no-brainer. Like it's a requirement for you to be in shape, but also being able to take care of yourself outside of the profession too, because it is a job at the end of the day, right? Like you have to go home to your family and be effective there, and be present there. So yeah, that's kind of the overall goal, is to increase overall health and wellness.
Yeah, and the work that they're putting in, like it's going to help them on duty, but it's going to help them off duty just as much, if not more. Like the fact that they will be taking care of their health, their fitness, that's going to show up in so many different areas of their life. I mean, obviously, it needs to be part of their everyday life if you are going to be protecting and serving the community that you're working in. But even ultimately, if you got a family you want to provide for, if you want to be there for your kids for the long run, I mean, it's like you mentioned, it is a no-brainer to be able to take the necessary steps um, to improve your fitness and just improve your state of readiness. But like you mentioned, people like to overcomplicate things, especially with health and fitness. I think one of the big ones is the fact that a lot of people will, like you mentioned, supplements, right? They put on so much importance of supplements when really supplements should be like the small percentage at the end, right? That's like the little cherry on top of the sundae, but people make that like the actual meat and potatoes part of it. But Matt Green, like head coach, I want to know from your perspective, what do you think are like the main components that somebody needs to focus on before looking into like supplements and all that stuff?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of that goes to like the intent and motive, and that, I think the focus on and is on supplements often because, you know, we are often looking for easier shortcuts or the fastest way to get to, the end result. So with that being said, I think that, the key points are it's pretty intuitive, right? It's consistency, which is, ultimately just a matter of discipline, right? Consistency, and it's just making small decisions day in and day out that lead to a better outcome, right? So compiling hard work and eating relatively nutritious foods and sleeping. Like those are the three big ones, right? Sleep, nutrition, and compile hard work. The hard work doesn't have to be elite level. It doesn't have to be anything that requires ridiculous equipment or ridiculous levels of training, but it does require some minimum amount of time that you have to put into it. And and that's the problem that you see is just an unwillingness to put that time in, and understandably so at times, especially for police officers right, with less than ideal schedules and departments that oftentimes don't support them that should be, but we live in the world. So in the real world, we have to adapt and take responsibility accordingly.
Yeah, that's a super good point too. And I think that just like you said, I mean, obviously if we're looking at it from a first responder perspective, sleep obviously is can get kind of weird because of shifts and things like that. But at the end of the day, you wanted to do this job. And that's one of the uh that's just how it works, right? And so, but there are things that we can do to help kind of mitigate some of those things, especially with the diet, like the pre-planning, like the meal prepping, things like that. Mitch, I totally agree with you on supplements. Like people put some of these things on a pedestal, and yeah, they're great. Like they're great, but they're supposed to supplement your diet, not just be your diet. I think people
Well, I like what
that
you put too. On your Instagram, you're always putting down like supplements in
yeah,
quotations, right? Like when you're looking at like a sexy piece of red meat. And for
yeah,
you, you know that this is like the core of your nutrition is like you're focusing on macronutrients first. Once you're hitting all the macros, then you can shift into micronutrients, getting all your vitamins, minerals, and then kind of that little cherry on top is getting into okay, what are your supplementation, right? And of course, when you're looking to optimize your health, there are lots of ways where you can continue to make large improvements with supplements, but you cannot skip the fact that you need to focus on, getting in proper nutrition, having a proper training plan, getting good recovery, good sleep, managing stress. It's really about just focusing on those basics first.
So I want to share something with you guys real quick. So my friend Andrew Huberman, you talk about like the supplement thing. This was actually pretty cool. So I'm just going to play it for you guys. I don't know if you guys can hear on the mic, but check this out.
Police posts. He shows
Yes, yeah, yeah. I
amazing,
follow him.
and he sometimes puts up this post. I love these ones. I do see how intense that job is, and like wow. And then, but he'll post like supplements, and it's a steak. He's just all about protein training and the job.
Yeah,
Shout out to my homie Dr. Huberman on the Rogan podcast. So I mean, yeah, it's true, right? Like you talk about supplements and you talk about what they're designed for. One, it is a multi-billion dollar, if not trillion dollar industry as well. So their goal is to get you to buy supplements when in reality, a pound of ground beef a day, lean, grass fed, it's probably going to go a little bit further than you buying, you know, whatever it is you want to buy. Right. So don't get it mixed up. And that's why people ask me, like, it's just crazy the first time, like they'll, comment on a picture and their first question is, what supplements do you take? Not talking about what kind of workout do I do? What kind of gym equipment do I have in my home
Yep.
gym? What's your diet look like? It's what kind of supplements do you take? Bro, if it was that easy,
Yeah.
we would all just take a pill and call it a day, right? That's just not the reality of the situation. The reality is you got to just like what Matt said. And Matt's also very humble about his fitness background. Like he's a CrossFit Games level athlete, which is like top tier fitness. Like you have to train your ass off. You just don't get there from being good and occasionally working out. You get there from having a plan and strategy, which makes me kind of like, which kind of I feel like drives to the next point too, is just like having that plan and strategy and just like the direction of what to go in. Like I know that's helped me individually.
Yeah, a plan is everything. And it's also about being consistent with a plan. Like you cannot go on a plan for a week or even a month and expect instant results. But you mentioned kind of like even going back to the supplement thing, people like to take what's the easy route, right? What's the get fit quick type of
Yep.
approach? What's the cheat code? So they want to take that one little pill. They see Adam posting a shirtless pic, posting on effective fitness, you know, training every day, and their first question is like, man, what kind of supplements is he on, right? And they want to know what's the easy approach, but the fact is like that's just not how this works. And I think if you've been in the if you've focused on your fitness or of course been in the industry, like it's common sense, but there is no easy fix with that. It's just about grinding, putting in the work, but knowing that if you have a plan that you can stick with, that you can be consistent with, you're going to get there a lot more effectively, a lot more efficiently. But along with that, like we live in a world right now where everybody wants that instant gratification. They want the easy approach, right? It's kind of like just I don't know if it's a generational thing, but everybody's looking for that quick fix, that little hit of dopamine, right? Instant gratification. And the good stuff, it does take time. And so I think like everybody on this call, like we've all been training for well over a decade to be in the positions that we are, to be able to move the way that we move. It doesn't happen overnight.
Matt,
I,
go ahead. Go ahead. Sorry.
ironically, that thought process, right? That thought process of looking for the easiest, most, the quickest method to get to the goal that you want to get to is why we're in this dilemma. That's why we're seeing this epidemic of lack of accountability and lack of proper standards across police. So I
Yeah.
think that's the root of the whole thing, right? Is attacking this from like, if we're attacking this from the root cause, it's just like it's first accepting what is necessary to get what you need, right? It's the acceptance and realization that we need to address first.
And you mentioned even like the lack of standards, lack of accountability. I wanna hear from you guys, as former law enforcement. I recently learned only 30% of departments actually have a mandatory fitness test that they have after the academy.
I'd say it's
What's
less
going
than
on with
that,
that?
dude. I'd say it's less than that. I don't
My
even.
my
I mean,
my department doesn't have. We're a major metro, the second biggest metro department in the state of Missouri, and we have no annual mandatory fitness test. Nothing.
no, mine had like it was like voluntary. Like it wasn't even
Yeah,
like
you get
you
a
could
bonus.
go and you get like a little pin for your uniform if you hit a certain numbers on the push-ups, sit-ups, and run or whatever. And it was like some of the guys would do those like I wouldn't even call them half rep push-ups. Like they just be bouncing off the ground. They're like 1, 2. They're like, I did 90 push-ups in 60 seconds. I'm like,
Our army
that's
push up.
impossible, but okay. Like, whatever, man. But no, I actually I don't really know the data on that, but I know from speaking with because so we did 2 years ago, I believe. Now at this point, we gave away $1 million in agency training, right? And we implemented the EFT agency program. And so I think we gave it away to think 22 or 25 different law enforcement agencies. Anyways, I say all that to say there was like an application process. We probably had 400 agencies apply, right? And they had to go through different tiers, just to kind of filter out if they really wanted to do it. One of the requirements was we had to have a video from someone who is a lieutenant or higher in their command staff to see if they were actually bought in. And we got some really good videos. Actually, we got some ones that are like professionally edited, like from their media team. But there were some like I had a conversation with the chief out of Connecticut. I'll never forget because it just stays in my head. It resonates in my head. It just goes to show you, and it pissed me off. Like luckily for me, I wasn't employed by anybody but myself, so I could just shoot from the hip. And um, he called me and said, I was like, hey, sir, you guys have qualified for to get the program for a year. There's no strings attached. Literally at the end of a year, you guys can keep going with it, or you can just stop, right? And he goes, yeah, we're having some issues with the city council approving. I said, well, it's free. Like there's no strings attached. And he goes, well, it's just not a priority right now. And I paused for a second and I said, so wait, you're telling me your officer's health and wellness is not a priority right now? Just being
It
clear,
never
because
is.
and he goes, if I remember correctly, he's like, no, it is, but just right now we have to do other things first. And I was just like, yeah, you're a piece of shit. Like you literally are about like you're the problem. Like you are exactly the problem there. Like you are not caring about the boots on the ground. You're not caring about the dudes that are out there pushing calls. You forgot what that was like, even if maybe he never even did that. Maybe he just sat in a parking lot the entire time. But like he's the guy, that's the problem. Like but now there are chiefs out there that'll go out there, they'll train jujitsu, and they're fucking getting after it and they're changing standard in policing. And those are the guys that we're seeing, like, especially over at the EFC side, and Matt can attest to that. Like, a lot of these guys that are coming to these classes, many of them are supervisors. Some of them have rank. We've had chiefs attend, we've had sheriffs attend, and they are all about that life, the fitness, the nutrition, the jujitsu, the training, the accountability. And, but I will say this, it is slowly changing. But again, just like everything else, the government works slow. But that was my one story that I will never forget. And I was just like, this is why we do what we do. Is that exact reason right there?
Yeah. Well, that guy that you talked to, right? The guy that's in the position that is ensuring that there's no specific standards or even assistance for any of his officers that are in his department, right? Even though we're basically like handing it to him on a silver platter, like please, like we're making this the lowest barrier of entry possible, and he's still like, this is not a priority. The thing is, it's not a priority until it has to be, right? Because that dude is thinking only in a reactive mindset. Like there's no ability for him to be proactive, which is insane. But the thing is, like, you don't need to wait for something bad to happen. You don't need to wait for a disaster to show up at your doorstep before you have to make the change. When we know it's so much better to be proactive with that. Like
Well,
before you encounter some crazy situation with your department where you're on the front page of every newspaper and coming up on police posts, like you could take a couple steps now in preventative measures to work against that.
ironically, that still even is not enough, right? Because like we see failures, especially in my department, where I mean we've had plenty of failures because of a lack of training, both physically and combatively, and that still doesn't drive change, whether that be out of ignorance, right? Like a lack of understanding and knowledge of like a lot of times it's just a lack of understanding. Like the people in positions of power, the leadership, they don't value it because they don't understand what it actually means to be well trained. It's being untrained is so normalized and so it's just accepted, right? Like fucking up, not being able to chase after criminals and correctly handle physical altercations with ideal outcomes is just an accepted thing in law enforcement now and many agencies because of the lack of awareness of leadership.
Just because it didn't happen to them or they didn't experience it means that it will never happen, right? And two, if you look at some of the admin, again, this isn't all, this is just some, is that they they quickly lose touch of what the job really is, or how it's currently evolving. Matt is totally correct, and it's wild to me that you'll see incidents like this, and you'll like life or death situations by seconds or just luck, and the fact that they can look at that and go, nah, we don't need to do anything about it, is just baffling to me. It's just like when I was in my situation where I had a guy just pull away from a child support warrant, I literally just was like, I could have been really hurt and or killed if this guy really wanted to fight me, because the environment that I was in, the skill set that I have, I just didn't have it. And the fact that I was basically lucky and was able to talk to him. And I mean, I have very good communication skills. So that's how I was able to get him in handcuffs, was just by verbalizing it and be like, hey, sometimes dispatch is wrong with the warrant. Maybe it's not you. And it definitely wasn't. It was confirmed. But at the end of the day, like we have to be able to train ourselves to look at situations and say, hey, could I have done it better? Even though it was quote unquote successful, could I have done it better? And that's sometimes a hard pill to swallow for some. Like self-assessment is just so critical, especially in this profession.
Yeah, and I would imagine like your self-assessment is of a different standard than a lot of people hold themselves accountable to, right? And so you could have already been like, on most accounts, a pretty solid, well-rounded officer, right? But at the same time, if you hold yourself to a higher standard, you probably look at that as like, you know what, I still have some gaps in my game. Like there's still some weak links that I need to improve on. And so for you, you took the necessary steps to start to chip away at that and start seeing progress little by little, right? And I know that was a long time ago, and I've heard that story, and it seems like for you that was kind of like the transformative type of situation that took you down this path. But there's still a lot of officers out there that just don't seem to be training properly, right? And I mean, like, of course there's some that aren't training at all, and then there's some that are, they might be hitting the weights, but at the same time, like if they're in a hand-to-hand combative situation, I don't know how they're going to fare.
Yeah, well, I mean, look. So we all train jujitsu. For those listening, uh, Matt's a super high level black belt at a competitive level. Mitch is a absolute stud of a purple belt, and I just got my participation belt. But like at the end of the day, we have to look at it from the perspective of you don't know what the situation is going to bring. You don't know when your Super Bowl is going to happen, and either you can or you can't, right? And that's how you have to view it. Is do you have enough skill and the ability to critically think quickly to adapt to that situation, because it's impossible to train for every single scenario that could possibly happen. It is absolutely impossible. And that's one thing that we preach at all, I guess you could say, all the EF companies, is fitness is a foundation of it. That's it. And I've said it before and I'll say it again. Your level of fitness is going to dictate, more than likely, the quality and effectiveness of all other levels of force, from deadly force all the way down and vice versa. And it's going to even affect how you switch in between levels of forces in those seconds and or milliseconds that you have to make those decisions. Your fitness is the foundation. That is it. There is no debate. There's no excuse. It's it. Again, I am a huge fan of the anti-mashed potato police club. If you look like fucking mashed potatoes, you should not be a police officer. If you are, you need to be put on a desk somewhere until you can pass some type of standard to get there. It's a, you're a professional. I always equate it to airline pilots. I don't want to go to I don't want to fly on an airplane. The cop's like I'm kind of good at my job. And I'm like, well, at 36,000 feet at 500 miles an hour, I want you to be good, especially when you have to land that thing. Like, I want you to be a professional at your job. If you can't be professional, then don't be, then just don't do it. This job is not for everyone. And that sometimes is a hard pill to swallow. I mean, Matt, how many guys have you seen like just get to the academy, do like a week of FTO and then just bail? Right? Like,
Yeah, I mean, we have quite a few people that drop out. Well, especially in the academy, right? Once the physical training starts ramping up, that's where you see the highest attrition rates in the academy. They start running twice a week, 3 times a week, and it's like the end of the fucking world, right? And yeah, they drop like flies. And we're talking about like 11-minute mile pace, 12-minute mile pace, for 2 to 4 miles. And that's
flat
still,
ground.
yeah. I mean, the standards are already embarrassingly low, and it's still weeding out. We probably had a 60% attrition rate.
That high.
Yeah, I think we started with 34 and came out with like 15. So yeah, about 60% there.
Now, is that attrition rate from people failing or just people leaving, or both? To kind of
Both. Yeah, a lot. Quite a, I don't recall exactly. Quite a few quit. Just quit because they were just like, yeah, mentally like I said, the physical. Once you saw the physical training ramp up, they just quit, and then because it's really hard. Like honestly, there were people like people got carried. If you just showed up and like did the training, even if we had like the whole, sit in the middle of the gym if you failed to run, right? If you couldn't like maintain that 11, 12-minute mile, so they kind of like embarrass you. But there was no actual. I mean, at the end of the academy, you had to pass a test, but even on some of these tests, they were carrying you, like literally. Like I actually physically pushed somebody on the run to get them, because we were, as recruits of our fellow recruits, we were responsible for maintaining a certain level of, accountability. But yeah, so all that to say is, yes, dropouts from both just quitting, failing, and then also, like if you just showed, but if you showed up, if you showed up, and even if you didn't meet standards, there were people that passed that truly actually didn't meet the standard. But because they showed up, they were essentially, coasted by.
Yeah, if I remember correctly, how it was for us is, even if you failed the PT standard at the beginning, you had the rest of the academy time to get into shape, and then you could redo it at the end. And if you passed it, you had like a certain amount of chances to do it. Now, the one thing that was pretty strict was, at least when I went through, I know it's much different now, but was, if you failed a test, like a written test. So our academy was 12. We had, so like, obviously you had your pre-academy, your academy, and your post-academy training, then FTO. But like for us, it was, um, if you failed a written test at the end of the week, then you went home. Like there was no second chance. You could just recycle, go to the next class. But I think there was like 74 in my class. And some people failed. And dude, it was like, they would just, so you take the test Friday afternoon, they'd walk in, and the person would just like, so you'd be, of course, you'd like be in the middle of class. Another instructor would walk in with a sheet of paper, just call your name, be like, Hadari, office now. And you're like, oh, fuck. Like,
That's
I mean,
yeah.
I never got that call because I didn't fail, but, but but there were guys that did, and your heart just sank because you're like, because then it's in front of everybody. Your agency gets notified, your supervisor gets notified, and then your agency has the right to not send you back again, and then you're basically out of a job.
That's
Uh, it's
that's
just wild.
sort of how we did it for
Yeah,
written test standards. I think they
sure.
gave us two chances, but it was funny. This goes back to the whole, reflection of, it shows that, what they care more about, they leadership, right? Because you fail a written test, you're out instantly. There is no like, well, you had two chances, but you fail the PT, you could keep failing it, fail to run. And it's
Crazy.
just like they just keep pushing you through. So it just goes to show the value, right? The priority of their priorities are fucked up.
Well, I mean, what's even more crazy is as someone who went into law enforcement, like I got in worse shape at the academy because I couldn't work out like I wanted to. Like I did a this is when I was doing CrossFit. Um and I did a workout with a buddy of mine. It was like 150 burpee pull-ups and a 10-mile run. And we like that was the last workout I did before I went into the academy. I go to the academy and they're like, we're gonna run 3 miles at whatever pace you want. And I'm like, bro, I'm gonna run this bitch in like 18. Like let's roll, right? And then like of course you had like A squad, B squad, and C squad, and you just did whatever pace you wanted. But like I knew I was going to the police academy. I knew I was gonna have to run and do push-ups, and I wanted to be in the best shape possible. And then I get there and I'm like, now don't get me wrong, there's some other guys that were studs there for sure. And they were like me. They're like, we still worked out at the gym after class and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, man, it's just crazy. Like, you're going into the police academy and you're still not preparing for it. Like, that right there's a red flag of what kind of person you're going to be. And two, I'll even say this, there are some agencies out there that will now give like a pre-academy workout. We've had one agency reach out to us and they wanted to do like a almost like a pre-academy plan to where they would give to their recruits and then they can monitor their progress over 8 weeks of their pre-academy, actually before they went into like the state academy or their own academy. And they said that that was really good because they could track them basically.
It's funny you say that because I mean that's awesome. I love hearing that. But our department's the complete opposite. So they see fitness as a liability. I have a great story. So when I was in the academy, I was like the peak of my CrossFit games, like competitiveness.
Oh, that's funny.
Well, I qualified for regionals, right? The step before CrossFit games. And I asked, I had to ask for permission for a day off. And I knew they were probably going to say no, but I was like, I'll give it a try anyway. I was currently, have you with context here, I was number one physical fitness, number one in academics, number one defensive tactics, and best overall recruit. And I was beating everyone in everything physically. I scored a perfect score in the academy test, which was the second person in the history of the academy test to score a perfect score. And they pulled me aside when they found out that I was doing outside curricular activities, like fitness wise. And they tried to bully me to stop doing it because it was a liability. And I'm like, are you fucking kidding me? I'm the only person in this whole fucking academy that actually has their shit together. And you're telling me to stop doing the thing that's making me better than everybody else or more prepared? It was fucking insane, dude. It goes back to like they saw like proper training and like as a liability instead of something that was like, supported, encouraged, and beneficial towards the recruit's preparedness.
It's it and to that approach, like I used to always pack my own lunches and things like that for work, and dudes would go out and have like, meatball subs and all kinds of stuff. And but I was a guy that would go and get a whole rotisserie chicken and a bag of spinach, and that would be my lunch. But I was the weird one, right? Like I was the guy that was weird, like, oh, you working out at 5 a.m. again? I'm like, dude, you haven't seen your dick in like 4 years.
Yeah, bro.
Yeah, and you're making fun of
Wild.
me?
Wow.
Like it's
Yep.
just it's just hysterical that the stigma of it. But now it's like I feel like the dudes that are into fitness and in nutrition, they just like I made a meme and it was like the super fat dude that had like the red shirt instructor, and he's like, "Are you not listening to me because I'm fat?" And he's like, "Yes." And it's like, dude, it's very hard to take someone seriously when, again, I was there too, like, oh, like the tattoos, oh, those are so taboo, and I'm like, yeah, but I don't care. Like, are you fit? Are you good at your job? Do you
Right.
understand case law? Like, do you have good tactics? Do you have good hard skills, good firearm fundamentals? Like, are you going to save my ass if I need you? I don't give a shit what's on your arm. Like, and I mean, dude, they used to not hire solid applicants, especially guys, former military guys that would get out of the service, mostly, I would say probably mostly like Army and Marine Corps guys, and they wouldn't hire them because of their tattoos on their legs or their arms. And I'm like, dude, you guys are just letting so many great applicants go that their foundation, especially if they're in the combat arms, like those dudes are squared away from a fitness standpoint. Like you can train them to be cops for the most part, right? Like it's just frustrating. But I'll say this: I would say that again, it's slowly changing. Matt, like, did you have an issue with like a tattoo policy or anything like that at your department?
Yeah, we had a policy, but they're actually pretty lenient on that because we're like the inner city. So a lot of our applicants, had face and neck and hand tattoos since we were
Gang,
inner
gang.
city. Yeah,
Gang,
we
gang.
actually, yeah, so that was one of the things they relaxed on.
Yeah, that's.
Hmm.
I mean, yeah, it's just the amount of applicants that just like takes out of the pool is absolutely crazy. But again, I really enjoy seeing the videos of like these cops that just are super squared away and just are true professionals. Like it is so refreshing. And I know JT and so JT runs Police Post. He also runs Surviving Policing. Well, he runs a bunch of other pages, but so he's a director basically of the whole Police Post enterprise. And we love posting videos of cops getting shit done, like the professionals, like true professionals that are out there stopping crime, and they train above the standard, and they're also good people. Like I think also to like the foundation of being a good cop is just also being a good person. Whether that's however you want to determine good person. I guess that's a very wild definition, a very vast definition there. But like, I think once you have that solid fitness and you're just super disciplined and you just understand like what a weakness is and then just crushing it. Like most cops are undertrained, combative. Like Matt, you're an EFC lead instructor. Like you go to all these courses. Most of the people there, I'm assuming, at least the ones that I've been to, don't have any formal grappling or jujitsu training, right?
Yeah, I mean, on my department, we have 1,200 people and six, seven, less than 10 guys train some form of grappling.
That's crazy.
So that's less than 1% of the department
It's
is
great.
trained.
And plus, when your job, and this is what I tell a job, I'm like, magical floating handcuffs don't exist yet, right? You can't AI generate handcuffs on a suspect yet.
Yeah.
So in the meantime, let's learn skills that allow us to control and then get these guys into custody. Now, in the process of control, and this, like weapons-based entanglements and things like that occur. But then we talk about like when a knife is presented and the environment allows us to create space, that agility, right? Agility in itself and speed is trained. You have to train those things. You're just not going to be agile. Like you're just not going to be an athlete. Yeah, some people have that gift, but it all starts with that foundation of fitness. And I think that's also what sets us apart in our programming too, is that our ability to understand what can potentially happen and then hopefully shape and train your body to be as well rounded as possible.
Well, I just saw I just saw a stat around this that could like bring this to light, but I heard that men in general are 400% more overconfident than they should be in terms of their physical capabilities. So the first
Yeah.
thing that comes to
Yeah,
mind is like
You
that's
ain't
in
low.
a combat,
That's
it's
low, dog.
insane. It's low, right? Especially the dudes that are
It's
like in a
low.
combative scenario, like they are totally untrained. They've never actually stepped on the mats, but they're like, I don't need to, bro, because I just see red, you
Yeah,
know? And you see the same shit for people that are thinking that they have the agility training, but as soon as like shit hits the fan and they have to go to a full out sprint, maybe you guys have seen this. Like if you see somebody that tries to sprint that hasn't sprinted since they were a kid on the playground, a lot of times
Awkward.
they fall on their face.
Yeah. Or they pull a hamstring immediately. Like that's but Mitch, you're exactly right. So whenever we teach the weapons based block and you have to turn your hips and drive your hips into let's say open space, even knowing you're in a training environment, right? Knowing that you're safe, it's controlled, they're not real weapons, you're not really going to get stabbed, people still run backwards. And Jay talks about this all the time. Jay Wadsworth over at EFC. Jay talks about, flat range fails, is that you can't break a 180 on a flat range. If you do, you get kicked off the range. There's some type of disciplinary action as it is a safety issue, right? That's kind of why it exists. But There's an infinite amount of videos of cops trying to create space and then running backwards and falling. Now, yes, sometimes you fall because your environment just sucks, and sometimes your feet get tangled up. Nobody's perfect. I'm not saying that. I'm saying that, but it is a trained response to break your hips and drive in a different direction while being able to stay threat focused. But you'd be surprised. Like I did it the other day on a vehicle extraction where I was like, hey, we have to break our hips and train. We were training some North Charleston cops. There was two people. Suspect came out with a knife, two of them flat on their butts. I mean, like, I'm talking not even 8 feet from the guy. And I'm like, well, if that guy really had the intention of hurting you and or stabbing you, then you are now getting stabbed and or hurt. That's why you have to drive. Well, I don't know. You're not hearing me. You're either going to get stabbed. If you don't want to get stabbed, you've got to learn how to create space as fast as humanly possible while being able to address the threat. And that reality-based training is what really kicks it in the butt. It really drives it home. I think it's very eye-opening for people. But that's where, I think it's 1 out of 10 cops are assaulted every year. I think that's the FBI UCR ratio. So you have a 1 in 10 chance of being assaulted by someone on the job, right? And so those are not great odds for you. So you need to be prepared to to go hands on to protect yourself and to protect others. And I think it's just I posted a I think Matt, I think you commented on it about I was like, please stop YOLOing your tactics. It's like I think I said, my brothers and sisters in Christ, please stop jumping on the hood of cars. Um, and it's interesting because like the body does weird things under stress. Like it does. I mean, there's videos of cops jumping on cars and cars driving off. And I mean, just very, very not. I mean, there's that one video of the cop jumping in the back of the truck. You guys remember that one? It takes off. The guy jumps in the back of the truck takes off down the street, and the cop's like, his buddy's like, just like,
Matt said that's actually his signature move.
oh yeah, yeah.
I can get a little wild, dude, and
I mean, dude, look, we've all done. I was talking to Jay about this the other day. Like, we all do. Like, we've all done dumb stuff starting out. Like, that's one reason how Police Post started. Is I was on a. I was actually at a red light. Light turned green. Guy didn't move. Right. It was a white Mercedes. I was at Folly and 17, and I'm sitting there, and the guy's not moving, and I'm right behind him. So I'm like, give a little horn honk. Nothing. Brake lights on, so I know his foot's on the brake. So I, hit the blue lights. I get out, and he's just passed out, fucking just out. Golf clubs in the back, so I'm assuming he had a long day of golf, and maybe he was just had too much to drink. And so, of course, I'm trying to wake him up, but also like not trying to startle him. So he just like slams on the gas and kind of runs in there. So kind of weird situation. Backup shows up, troopers show up. They end up like busting in the window. And the guy was still out cold. He was just extremely intoxicated. But I did something really stupid. I was actually at the driver's side, and I walked in front of the car to go around to the passenger side. And I got back in my car, and I was all like, if that dude woke up and just was startled because he saw a green light and just slammed on the gas, like, I'm dead. Like, this is a Mercedes SUV, and this is 6,500-pound car. I'm dead. I was like, that was dumb. Don't do that shit again. And so I was like, I got on Police Post, and obviously I didn't have it recorded because we didn't have body cams at the time. And so I found a post of something similar, and I kind of reshared it, and I was like, hey, don't do what I did and walk in front of a car, because that's you could be hit by a car, dumbass. Like, it's like, we all do dumb things, but that's also what the community is about too, is just like improving. I was able to self-assess that was stupid, and that I shouldn't ever do that again. Like, felony car stops. Yes, I've ran up to cars after pursuits. Stupid, but I did it, and I got lucky that nothing happened. But again, that's kind of how we learn, unfortunately, sometimes.
Yeah, you got to the key is learning from those situations, but ultimately like putting yourself in a position where you might be at risk, but if you can train yourself in a position where you're putting yourself at risk, but you're in a controlled environment, you're going to be much more capable to handle yourself whenever it's actually a live scenario. And I think the issue with how a lot of police officers and just like departments in general is they're trying to avoid the difficult things, because as you increase stress and increase difficulty, the risk for injury does go up. And also that means like there's also a bit of liability risk. But you could argue, I mean, in day-to-day operations as an officer, like anything you can encounter is a humongous liability. Like you can encounter like anything and everything that's obviously going to be a liability. And we know like, you need to be able to hope for the best, but you train for the worst. And I think a lot of people out there are only hoping for the best. They're not doing the other part of this. Like, but you have to do both. Like you can think optimistically and think like nothing bad is ever going to happen and I don't need to train that because that's just going to put me at risk. That's going to put me at liability. But obviously you're just setting yourself up for failure eventually.
No, you're exactly. I mean, Mitch, like you know, Matt's about to be a dad. Mitch, you and I are dads. You know, well, Matt, you are technically already a dad. Just going to get that out of the way. Because it is yours, right?
Maury?
So we think, right? I always tell my wife, I'm like, are you sure that one's mine? But no, I like even just being prepared as a father, right? Like going out, my level of, and maybe it's the cop in me, and maybe it's just knowing the reality of what can potentially happen. Like I bring a med kit everywhere. Like I carry tourniquets for not only myself and my wife, but for my kids, Benadryl and things like that. Like, yeah, have I ever had to use it on my children in an incident? No, but if I had to, if they were bleeding out and I had no other way and I had nothing, well then that's a preventable death, right? And so like even from that perspective, like yeah, like preparing for the worst is always going to be the goal. And then everything from that perspective, like you should be able to use your critical thinking and deductive reasoning and skill set and principles and concepts to make it work. But like Matt, from your standpoint, from like being on a task force, when you guys would go hands on or there'd be an incident, like would you guys do an after action of the mission to take down the op, whatever you guys called it?
I worked at HSI, and it was
Tell the people what that
essentially
is. Some people know what
Homeland
HSI is.
Security. Homeland Security. So they went like city to city. They hit like all the big cities, and basically you got assigned like we had a little squad, a street squad with a couple. Each cop had their own HSI agent, and it was essentially we were just hunting down violent criminals, right? So it was street work, but not like it was uniform street work, but not patrol, right? So we just went out on our own volition, hunt down essentially the violent criminals in the area, right? To curb violent crime. So with that being said, I mean it wasn't like super big planned ops like SWAT where they go in on a search warrant and stuff, right? We were just it was more of spontaneous, right? Street work. It was street work, right? So it was just kind of like jump out boys. It was a street team. Essentially, it's kind of how we operated. So with that being said, yeah, we had like, you know, we'd get yeah, we'd get together and like review like, oh man, that like, for instance, we had a big shooting pop off when we were out on the street patrolling for, whatever. We had a big shooting pop off and we rolled up on the scene. It was like 70 shots, multiple people shot, guns everywhere, right? People were fleeing. It was a crowd of like 60 people. So like in that case, like it was a shit show, right? It was dark at night. You couldn't see anything. Car had, however many dozens of bullet holes. So yeah, like after that one, I vividly remember that one because I was like, yeah, we gotta talk about that because how we approached that, it was, on the fly, and it was, we weren't supposed to be even responding to it, but it was kind of like it was half a mile from us, so we just, went. And it really got me thinking on how, we should be preparing and analyzing situations that just kind of happen spontaneously. So yeah, to answer your question, yeah, we did have reviews, after action reviews, whatever you want to call it. But not to the degree that I think we should have or could have.
Yeah, I think it's everywhere, and that's where I mean, even just from your uniform patrol perspective, even just having that self-diagnosis of the situation is huge. I mean, I have friends all the time that will talk about incidents with me that they've had and be like, "Hey, dude, this was just a normal traffic stop. What are your thoughts here?" And again, I don't know everything, but if they ask my opinion, I will definitely give it. And if I don't know something, I'll obviously point them in the right direction. Or if I know someone who knows more about that topic, obviously I'll point them in the right direction. Like I use Jay as a reference all the time. Like, hey, you got Jay's number? Call Jay. Send Jay the video. whatever the case may be. Like, I mean, if it's a jujitsu thing, I'm like, yeah, you definitely need to call Jay or call Dylan or call Matt or anybody but myself. But like, but no, like I totally like the idea of breaking down incidents, even if it's just a simple like call that you get. Like if it's even just like it's just like a call for service, being able to break down, say, hey, what could I have done good? What can I have done bad? And then just, you know, people try to like, it's really easy to get complacent as well on those things because it's just like on to the next, and you're not thinking about what you just learned. But again, that's what does separate people though, right? That's what separates guys like yourself. I mean, I mean, I'm assuming you're the probably only black belt on your task force.
Nobody trained, man. I
Right.
mean, the guys, yeah. And honestly, it was weird working with HSI because like they're not street cops, right? So
No,
it
no, no.
was real weird operating with them, trying to get them familiar with like, how to conduct stops
How
and
to be a cop?
yeah. Yeah. It was awkward, man. Good
Yeah.
guys, but not for like it's a different world.
Yeah. Yeah. I've experienced that, and I know Jay has too. He was telling me because Jay's been on a few task force, and he was telling me he's like, yeah, we've had I'm not gonna say the agency. He was like, we would have our agent and just be like, you just watch, and we'll do the we'll do
Yeah,
the
the
stuff.
policing.
Yeah. Thank you, Fed man.
Yeah.
No, I mean, again, he's like, he was great. He just didn't, just his tactics weren't squared away. Like, again, they're not street cops. I think people need to understand that too. But,
Very different.
no, man, I think that's like, you know, I think this whole conversation is super important because it just kind of goes to show you like how many things that you can do from a fitness standpoint, how that kind of falls into, being prepared, being able to break down. And I'll say this too, like I think people who take their fitness seriously, who take their training seriously, um, just are just more disciplined. Like they just want to strive to be better. Like even if you win every single time, if you're good, right? If you're lucky, if whatever the case may be, like we have to always strive to be better. And I think that uh sometimes it's really easy to become complacent, and it's really easy to say, I'm good enough. Right. And I think that's where we start to see the decline, is it's just people just think they're good enough. And
Yeah,
I
good
don't ever
enough.
feel that way.
Yeah, good enough is just like kind of it's the bare minimum. It's just checking the box, right? Just to get over that barrier of entry, but it's obviously not enough. I would say, there's a lot of uncontrollables out there, especially in law enforcement, but you have to remind yourself to just focus on the controllables. But along with that, there's a lot of shit that's fully within your control, right? And you mentioned at the start, Adam, like the foundation with all of this to be a more effective officer is fitness. And fitness is 100% in your control. Even if you think of all the bullshit excuses that are out there, right? That's all it is. It's just excuses. And along with that, it's fully in your control. So you mentioned like even just the ability to be prepared, right? And being able to just being able to hold your own in any type of environment. You even mentioned like stressful scenarios. You can imagine like if you are in a position where you're trying to chase down a suspect, right? Or you're in a high stress situation, you're automatically like physiologically you're going through a couple of different processes. Like your heart rate is going to be elevated, your blood pressure is pumping, right? During all those different factors that are going on, if you are not a physically fit person, if you don't work on your endurance, your stamina, your strength on a regular basis, like imagine whenever you actually encounter and you catch up to that threat, like how you're actually going to be able to handle yourself. Or even if you're having to do some problem solving, right? Or handle a difficult situation, even from a mental standpoint, if you are in such a stressful situation because there's the whole entire situation, but then even from your own physical standpoint, you know that your body is like breaking down. That to me, that's like a definition of being a liability.
Yeah, dude. Yeah, for sure. I mean, this is what people, I guess, to kind of sum it up, at least kind of from my perspective is society demands perfection from law enforcement. Like when they call 911, they're calling because there's a problem. They're not inviting you to a barbecue. They're not trying to tell you they had a good day. They're probably going to do the opposite, right? They're calling you to come solve a problem. And whatever that problem is, you need to be prepared to handle. Unless it's not your problem, then you just go back 10-8 and go on about your day, which is sometimes the best answer.
Yeah.
That's it. And that's what you wish happens. But unfortunately, society demands perfection, right? They want cops to be expert marksmen, expert drivers, expert negotiators, mental health professionals, which cops are not, by the way, expert, tacticians, expert in medical. Like they want you to solve it. And then when you don't solve it, then you make the news, right? Now you look at the quality training cops are getting, you look at where they're getting it from and how frequently they're doing it. Right. And it's just not right now. It's just not the best. Now there are options out there and there are agencies that are doing a phenomenal job. I'm not saying this is all law enforcement. There are some agencies out there that are actually crushing the training game. They're paying their guys to work out. They're letting their guys grapple. They're building mat rooms like Grand Rapids Police Department. Absolutely. And their numbers don't lie. Like that's what's so amazing. We have hard objective numbers that implementing, let's just say EFC over the course of 2 years has changed their agency use of force greatly, dramatically. Like it's not even like 10%. It's like 80%. And it's just when you have those numbers, it just doesn't lie. So with that being said, being well-rounded is extremely important, but having that foundation is just key. And I think that's where people sometimes try to overcomplicate the foundation with all the information, with the just everything on Instagram is, oh, new study out. If you have red meat, you're gonna die. Oh, just kidding. New study out. Like it's just like, all right, like with all this information, and most people don't know how to read studies anyways. Right. So like, I mean, it's just there's so much information and being able to fine tune that information is critical. And that's what you guys try to do. That's Mitch and Matt's job is to make sure that information is accessible. You guys are extremely well-rounded and highly educated in that area.
Yeah,
So we
it's
say,
just breaking through
right?
the noise. Like it's
That's
breaking
right.
through all the noise, and it's the age of information right now. And what happens is if you want to go online and be like, well, how do I lose 10 pounds? Right? You're going to find a million different answers from 1,000 different coaches, right? All claiming to know the shit, right? This is
Yeah.
the best way to lose 10 pounds.
Or supplement.
And for somebody, yeah. And for somebody that is just like kind of maybe a little bit newer to the fitness space or just looking to become more of an asset in their profession, like it's easy to get lost in all that stuff. And what happens is you see that information overload, start to analyze all of it. Then what happens is analysis paralysis. And then what happens is like you just ultimately freeze because you're like, there's so much junk out there. I don't know what's right. I don't know what's wrong. I want to put in the work. I'm ready to put in the work, but I don't want to go in the wrong direction. Right. So sometimes the easier approach is just to like not do anything. That could also be a slippery slope. And then it kind of goes back to what we were talking about before. Like you can go about like not doing anything until something bad happens. And then you're forced to do something. Right.
That's
and
right.
so I'm going to give a shameless plug here. But if you find yourself in that situation, of course, this is what effective fitness training specializes in. Right. If you are in the law enforcement community or you're looking to get in the law enforcement community, right, and you want to improve your physical fitness, no matter what level you're at, no matter where you're at in your overall fitness journey, know that we can give you a plan that will help you get from A to B. Wherever you're looking to go, wherever you're at right now, we can help you meet you where you're at. This is what our coaches and what our program is really designed to do. And most importantly, it's going to help you just cut through all the noise of what's out there and give you some personalized guidance and also some accountability to make sure what you're doing is actually working. And at the end of it all, you actually have some results to prove.
That's right. I mean, Matt was busting my balls about my carbs. And it's like uh, I'll say this. I eat a lot of leftovers in my house because I hate wasting food. Like I'm just like, oh, 3/4 eaten Uncrustable. Like okay, like I'm gonna eat it. Like I hate wasting food. Chicken nuggets and French fries. I literally feel like a vacuum. I always account for about 700 calories of my day. It's not going to be food that I prepared for myself. Mitch, you probably the same way too. Like you're just like you see, you're like, oh well, veggie straws. All right, that just I'm not gonna waste that. Like, um, so I like the whole carb thing. Like I feel good around 190. I'm sitting at like 205 right now, which I know is not victim weight, which I definitely appreciate. I mean, you guys are absolute studs. So, I think that like just having Matt kind of bust my balls was like, yeah, dude, you're right. I need to get better at my carbs because like that's the one thing I always prioritize protein. I literally forget to eat carbs sometimes. Like I'll just forget because I'm like protein, 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 protein. When really I'm like, damn, I need to go have some sweet potatoes or, something other than red meat or chicken or fish or whatever. You know?
Yeah, as a dad, you're always going to be a little bit of a garbage disposal.
Yeah, for sure.
But as long as you got like 80% of it is solid, then you could be the garbage disposal for 20% of it. Right? That's kind of the ratio I look at it.
That's right. Yeah, Matt, you'll enjoy that life too. You'll be eating
Yeah,
a lot of just you'll be like, and the thing is like,
that shit going to
you
waste,
don't,
dude.
dude. I know it's like
Hotter
you
cereal
don't
for
want to eat
me.
it. Like you'll look at it and be like, I don't need to eat that, and you just look at it again. It's just looking back at you. You're like, all right, fine.
Give
Like,
me the
damn
gummy
it.
bears. Give me
That's
the
right.
animal
That's right.
crackers.
That's right. Like my kid, he had a they built like a graham cracker like house or whatever, like a whatever. And I was like, ooh, I love graham crackers. So I was just like, just take some, be all right. I'm like, that's like, okay, it's probably like 40 grams of carbs right there, plus the sugar, but it's all good, man. I really think that these discussions are just extremely important. And, I think especially to like the newer officers that don't quite understand what to expect and just what it looks like moving forward when you're in the profession. That could probably be next topic is like once you're in, what do you do? Like shift work and you're on a fucking task force and your wife's, you want to have a good family time and like even like what does that look like? Because that's a stress that does affect your health, right? So like I mean the divorce rate in law enforcement's like what like 40% or something crazy like that. Like it's pretty high. Just it might be. I don't even know if I know.
That's the American average, I think.
Well, that's true too. Yeah, guys, we need to fix this country. That's what we're gonna do with this discussion. We need to get back on track, gentlemen. Make sure you guys are following Effective Fitness Training, effective.fitness training on Instagram. The website is effective.fitness. And of course, you can find our personal pages in the comments or show notes below. If you guys have any questions about what we do at EFT or Police Post or EFC or any of those, please just send us a message. We have people that do monitor those channels. Now, don't send Police Post a message because we get probably about 150 to 200 DMs a day, and it takes a lot to monitor that. But if you have a question about the fitness and or combatives, feel free to send a DM to those. You can also DM my page, which is just my name, Adam.Hadari, Instagram.
Yeah, if you guys want to connect or link up my Instagram, you can find me at Steel Method.
There you go, Steel Method. And you have manonamission.4u. That is Matthew Wade Green with an E at the end. Matt is an absolute stud guy. So if you are looking for any type of information on combatives or fitness, he's the head coach at EFT, and he has the accolades to give you guys the best advice possible. Even if you're like Matt's a very accomplished jiu-jitsu practitioner along with collegiate wrestling, and he has some MMA experience too. So there's a reason why he's on the team because he's a stud. And he is currently in the Army Reserves as well, so or National Guard. Yeah, guys, hit us up if you have any questions or comments. With that being said, guys, we appreciate you, and until next time.